we are actually already reaching the last part of our conference, and I'm just asking you a little bit of time so I can share my screen. We have something very interesting coming up. Now we have a deep dive on Star Scientific's Hero technology and its potential for the African industry. So very often when we speak about hydrogen and green hydrogen in particular, we talk about scale, we talk about gigawatts and gigawatts. It's not always easy to see the direct impact that hydrogen can have on our small lives or companies, individual companies. Well, actually, this company has developed something that finds application directly for individual companies and especially interesting for developing markets. So I've invited Andrew Horvath, the global group chairman from Star Scientific, to tell us a bit more about his company and about this technology. Andrew comes with an entire life dedicated to R&D and physics, and he's founded his company Star Scientific, actually building on his father's earlier work in nuclear physics. And actually what happened is a story that you hear many times. They were focusing their research on one thing, actually muon catalyzed fusion. And through this research, there was a breakthrough moment that led to the discovery of a technology to convert hydrogen into heat and without combustion. As many of you know, heat is actually a major energy consumer from industrial activities, even more so or equally so than electricity. And so Andrew will tell us a little bit about this, and then we will be joined by Amy, who will address any questions that you might have about this technology and the company. Andrew unfortunately could not make it with us today, but luckily we were able to record a small interview with him. And so I will play this interview with you now. Hello, Andrew. Thanks for joining us today. All the way from Sydney, Australia. Thanks a lot for taking the time.
It's my absolute pleasure. It's nice to see you again, John.
We're really happy to host you today because you are working on something really interesting. Even though you're far away in Australia, the things you are working on also have an impact on Africa, and this is what is of interest in the conference today. And to understand this better, maybe I would like to ask you first to explain us a little bit about your group and the different companies that are composing this group.
Certainly. So in Australia, the primary company, Star Scientific Limited, is based in Australia. It's a predominantly Australian company. It has two counterparts, Star Scientific Singapore and Star Scientific Europe. Star Scientific is the research aspect of the group. So this does all the R&D work. It has all the very large R&D labs, and we have some of the best labs in the Southern Hemisphere here. We then go to Planet Power Finance in Zurich. Planet Power Finance is our finance group, so they deal with green bonds, they deal with investments into other hydrogen infrastructure, which is of course very important to us because we need people making hydrogen for us to use. We then have Planet Power Systems. Planet Power Systems is based in Singapore, but it's currently expanding around the world. There's about to be one in Europe and one in San Francisco. This will be the rollout company, the company that actually installs, operates, maintains the Hero technology.
All right, well, very good. Thank you very much. And you just mentioned the Hero technology. This is something of great interest here. Could you tell us a little bit more about what it is, what it does, and what are the different applications?
Certainly. So Hero stands for Hydrogen Energy Release Optimizer. A long laboured name, but Hero. So this is a very unique catalyst. So it's a very thin layer on a substrate, and that substrate can be metal, it can be other materials, ceramics. The beauty of this catalyst is that it's not a traditional catalyst that gets involved in the reaction of joining hydrogen and oxygen to form water and then releasing energy. This catalyst stays neutral in that. It doesn't add to it. It acts as a home for the reaction to take place. So therefore, we never use up the catalyst. Now, when you combine hydrogen and oxygen like that, you end up with quite a bit of leftover energy and pure water at the end. Because this is mounted to the surface that is actually doing all the work, all the heating, we can transfer that heat at 90% plus across to whatever you're heating, be it steam, be it gas, be it food preparation, be it whatever other heat you need in industry. So it's an incredibly unique thing. What we have developed with that is an active side heat exchanger. So this is, again, a very rare product. So we have a heat exchanger that is normally heat exchangers are passive, and many of your people would know that in this conference. This is an active side one. So all the energy is being derived on one side and pushed through to the other. Now, as I said, 90+% of the energy that is made in that reaction is done that way. One of the benefits of hydrogen is the speed of reaction. So we can go from 0 to 800 degrees C in under 3 minutes. And being a catalyst, of course, it can be as large as it has to be in terms of surface area, or as small as you want it to be in terms of surface area. Surface area is king. So there is no limitation to the size of the units that you could have or the amount of energy being derived from them in the form of heat.
That is two very interesting elements there. Heat, definitely one of the biggest consumer of energy in industry, and then size, which is flexible and modular. Also quite important when we think of bringing this solution to smaller industrial operations. And I think actually this is precisely what is happening for your company in your activities in the Philippines. You've entered into an agreement with the government there, which is very, very promising. Could you tell us a little bit more about this agreement, how you ended up selecting the Philippines, and what this really means for the country and the economy there?
All right, well, the reason we selected the Philippines and we entered into discussion with them about a year ago before we signed the MOU is that the Philippines is in a very unique position. They have a very young population, so 56% of their population is under the age of 25. 35% of the total population is under the age of 14. 10% of the population is over 55. So they have a very large burgeoning young population that is coming out and wants to get educated, and their education system there is excellent. It really is very good. They want to get educated, they want to get out in the world, but they're all heading to Manila. And this is a problem because Manila is growing at 2% a year, and that's quite sizable. They have taken a decision a while back that they want to become the Green Korea, if you will, the South Korea, where they want to work with industries who want to go to net zero. And so many companies around the world have declared we're going to be net zero by whatever date. They started talking to us because they saw that this might be a way that they can change their existing power stations, coal-fired power, into that situation. We pointed out to them that it's way beyond that they actually could build new industrial cities running on hero architecture. They could run a lot of the industries that require heat, and if anyone would like to look around them, everything they're looking at is derived from heat. It's quite remarkable when you realize that there's really not a product you can look at that doesn't have a heat component. So building that on them, we started to talk to their planning council, and we're now within the DOE, the Department of Energy, and the Department of Planning. We're in a subcommittee with them in their government. And we are working with them now to look at the long-term planning of the Philippines and the hydrogen architecture that goes into that. For them, floating wind is extremely useful for them. They have about 40 gigawatts of available floating wind, to our hydrogen electrolyzers that we're developing, as well as our hydrogen storage solutions, as well as then Hero, and where that will flow. So for the Philippines, it's really about the transition of getting their people into work and getting their people into an industry that will make them sort of gain in exports. because at the moment they have a net loss in trade. So they'd like to make a net gain in trade, and that's the key. They're also an energy importer and they want to become energy independent. So for them, it's a long-term play for their population and the expansion of the economy, a dramatic expansion of the economy, and we fit nicely into that program.
You've mentioned some very interesting terms there: very young population, very high urbanization rate, eagerness to have access to more comfort and to develop as an exporting economy. That sounds quite familiar for people like us here in Africa. Do you see commonalities between the work that you're doing in the Philippines and what could be done here in Africa with this technology?
Certainly, there's a, it depends obviously on which country in Africa, you know, you can't generalize, but in terms of many of the countries in Africa, certainly on the eastern side of Africa, there is the same sort of situation occurring. What I like in Africa is that there are many countries in Africa that are suited to the production of hydrogen and the movement of hydrogen and the export to other countries in Africa. And there are other countries within Africa that are more suited toward green manufacture and the type of processes there. So there's a nice situation existing there where energy can be made and used in different places in different methods. This harbours then a fairly dramatic increase in living standards. And whenever you do that, obviously, if you have a better living standard, the first thing you want is a better product in your home. You know, better TV, better microwave, better, you know, better comforts. Those things engender more manufacture. So you start to build the economy, and the world needs Africa at the moment. It needs Africa to rise up and become partially the next consumer economy, but it needs it to be a green economy. If we want to tackle all the issues, and there are many more than just climate change, all the issues around, the movement of Africa toward green energy is essential. I'll give you one very interesting, simple one. There is a large fish population that used to go up the very coast of East Africa. And because of the wood burning in Africa, there is a perpetual precipitation cloud over the east coast of Africa that has cooled the ocean there, and the fish are still there, but they're about 100 miles offshore. So if you stopped burning the wood, that would correct itself and those fish would return there. So there are all sorts of studies that have proven that if Africa modernizes in a green way, it will make a massive difference to the entire nation. And I see that the yin and yang there of some can really produce great energy, others can produce great workforces that can work within the with the green industrial sector. Because believe me, every company is coming and looking for countries that can produce economically green things that are environmentally sensitive and green, so recyclable and green. And that is an incredibly important aspect that Africa can trade on. And Hero, being the end use side of the hydrogen, so the demand activator, can and will play a role in that.
And how, what would you recommend for people who are listening today, policymakers, industrial players? What is their best next action to actually engage in what you are describing?
So the most important thing is unified regulation. So if you have different regulations, vastly different regulations for hydrogen in different countries, it makes it very hard for investors to look across that broad range of countries of how you can export and move hydrogen, deal with it, store with it, if all the regulations are different. It's very much like the old days where you used to have different gauge railways and you had to keep stopping and changing trains because everyone had vastly different gauge railways. The African nations have got to be prompted to come together and form a singular system that will work for everybody. And that's really important. And they should really go to the ISO standard, the International Organization standard of hydrogen. So same pressures, same valves, same type of materials in their piping. This brings investment and security of investment in, because people go, well, that's good. The infrastructure, when we lay it out, we know what that infrastructure is. And that's a very key and important point. For governments, I don't really think for governments it's even a massive amount of money invested in what they're doing. What they need to do is to make sure that they've got the relevant inspectors and the trained people who understand what and how things should be, so safety is always paramount. From that point, it's educating industry on how to use this. So for us at the moment, we recently won a very, very large award, and we thought the action from that reward would be power companies coming to see us. It isn't, it's the food industry. Right around the world, the food industry is calling us saying, how can we convert from natural gas to what you're doing? Because we want to go green. Now, that is easier than changing them to electric, going to hydrogen and going to something like Hero. We can replicate their systems with Hero with ease without having to electrify them. The other thing they should look into is not building huge power stations with hydrogen. That's a furphy. What they should be looking at is nodes of energy, 50 to 100 megawatt nodes of energy that can be controlled, so switched on, switched off as they're needed within regions, as climatic issues change, as energy changes. The next point would be to take very large industries and don't let them connect to the grid. Give them their own node of energy to work from. So that is vital, because then you don't need to have power lines. So many people don't realize that the difference between sending electricity down a line or hydrogen down a line in terms of the same amount of energy, hydrogen is 1/6 the cost to move that energy from point A to point B. So if you can move it to that industry, that very big industry, and say, here, you're off the grid, you power yourself, you're saving billions of dollars of national infrastructure, putting massive power lines everywhere. So these sorts of things are the key things that need to be discussed and need to be brought up, you know, with all the ministers, relevant ministers in Africa, to get that unification, that little bit of unification across how these things are going to work.
Extremely interesting thoughts there, Andrew. Thank you very much. And before we take on some questions from the audience, I think many people will be interested to get in touch. Many people from the food industry, many people from the infrastructure industry to understand a bit more what is possible with your technology. But I wanted to thank you once again, Andrew, for taking some time today to share with us all the interesting things that you've been working on with your company. And well, yes, thank you very much. We'll be having the Q&A in a few moments, and we look forward to staying in touch with you very, very soon. Thank you.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do it. Anybody wants to look at what we're doing, starscientific.com.au. You'll get all our socials, all the demonstration videos, all the access to all the other companies' newsletters, and you'll be able to keep in touch with us.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Well, there we go for this recorded interview with Andrew. And before I start asking some questions, I will ask Amy from Planet Power Finance to connect with us. Hello, Amy. Welcome.
Hi, John. It's good to see you again.
Likewise.
Thanks for having us.
So just a little word of explanation to our listeners. Amy, you work with Planet Power Finance, which is one of the companies of the Star Scientific Group. And maybe if you don't mind, just giving a quick explanation about your role in the company and what you focus on.
Yeah, definitely. So just to touch a little bit on Planet Power Finance, or PPF as we call it. We're actually a Swiss-based investor company, and we invest along the entire green hydrogen value chain. That means from the renewable energy sector all the way to production, storage, transport, and then end use. And then obviously you just heard from Andrew talking about end use. So it's also technologies that are also coupling with Hero, and then projects that we can look to deploy these technologies into to help them scale up and start mass manufacturing. So my role really in the company is head of strategic development. I really help and assist the team to find these kind of deal sourcing, companies, these innovators, these technology companies that are making the change, that are really a part of where we're going to be going next. And this is really exciting. It's finding these entrepreneurs that have a real hunger for change and wanting to see a difference and contribute to the hydrogen economy. And this is really exciting to see this. So yeah, I assist with the team with this. Also following, you know, the latest updates, do a bit of communication here as well, and handling all of our social medias.
Wonderful, thank you. And we have several questions already. Many people asking for the website to go check out and get some more information. In your opinion, so Andrew already mentioned, like you're getting approached very often by the food industry. Yeah, most of us here connected today, we know that the food industry requires a lot of heat. What other types of industry would be kind of ideal users of your solution? And when I say what kind of industry, with a specific eye on Africa, of course. Yeah,
the specific industries is almost really unlimited with the power of Hero and what it can do. So it can really have as Andrew had said, that it produces industrial steam, and that to power everything is around us. So the industries that can come in really range from everything from power generation, from desalination, which I know is a big issue as well with the water consumption, or even water that is used in other industries. It's the desalination, not specifically district heating for Africa, but really anything that is using the steam that they need. So it ranges from all of those applications and more. And it's only now that we're entering into this MOU with the Philippines and doing these feasibility studies, even in Australia, and looking at other projects around the globe, that we're starting to realize, wow, this even has more power than probably we initially imagined. And that having these industries like the food industry come through, they're really coming through and saying, hey, we need a solution, and then us being that solution, which is really exciting. I mean, where the benefit we can see in Africa is that, you know, the job security of Africa, or you know, some stats that come out is 1 in 5 of the youths are not in employment, education, or training, and this is where it's going to help the regions and overall African economy, where we can help bridge that and bring people into work and bring people in. I mean, they say that by a McKinsey study had said that by 2050 there's going to be 30 million sustainable jobs globally available, right? And that's a huge opportunity for Africa to get into the mass manufacturing, creating these green hydrogen hubs, utilizing the hydrogen and with these nodes and in specific communities, not just, you know, sticking to centralized power. It's about really overall having this circular economy that can work together.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly it. I mean, it's a holistic approach, right? We're not just talking about producing green hydrogen here. I mean, it's like a virtuous circle. At least this is what you see is happening already in the Philippines with your rival. It's still early days, but we can already anticipate the great impact this can have on the economy. And
yeah, and just to point out that to really have a long sustainable economy in Africa, I've read in a study that it's important that there is the local expertise within the market to help drive the economy, the innovation behind it. So I think this is going to be super important, and I know they had mentioned it on the other panel as well, and I 100% agree with that.
And maybe basic question, but how, concretely speaking, could anybody running a company, running an industrial company here today, listening on this platform, how can they benefit? Is it accessible already today? Is there still a lot of research that needs to be done? What exactly should people picture?
Yeah, I mean, what's important to note is that there is technologies out there already that are proven, that are ready to be scaled up, and that these industries that are looking towards to go to transition to net zero emissions in their processes, they're able to get in touch and reach out to find the solution to be able to transition. And it's not going to just be you know, them transitioning and they're not going to put fossil fuels into, they're not going to put emissions into the air, but they're actually going to save a lot of money on their productions. And with the cost of carbon that will increase, you know, extremely rapidly over the next couple of years, that it's only going to save them time and money, and it's going to be well spent better in the communities.
Plus, also, as Andrew said, yeah, switching over to producing economically green things, which is in high demand, and so trying to yeah, tackle this demand, international demand. Yeah,
well, I mean, the demand is already there, especially the international demand. I think what we have at PPF, being having Star by our side, is that we have this advantage of knowing the potential that Hero has. So we understand that the demand that Hero has is so large that is why we're focused on green hydrogen, because if we can really ramp it up, then it's going to bring the cost down, and then we're going to see it already competitive with fossil fuels, and it's almost going to be a no-brainer that we have to move, you know. So there's Hero is really that kind of smart technology solution with efficiencies that can really go into anywhere at the moment.
Well, yeah, it's. I mean, I'm very happy that we are finishing this conference on the Hero technology. It to me, at least, it makes it extremely practical and tangible for the industrial players who were joining us on this panel. And I think we've really covered many different points throughout those 2 days. I hope it's been useful. I hope it's been rich in learning and insights. So yes, I would like to thank you, Amy, to thank Andrew, but to thank all our speakers who joined us over the last 2 days, and our moderators as well, for making this event possible. I personally found it extremely interesting. I've learned a lot of things, and I hope the future will bring us a lot more positive news, combining the hydrogen and the solar industry, so that we can work on a brighter future together.